Welcome back to Empowered with Elizabeth Nomofsky. We're discussing visiting war zones and impoverished countries and empowering the women in them. And today I've got Teri Schultz. Teri, how has it been? Has being a woman affected your career?
I wouldn't know otherwise, but as we've been discussing a bit, because I have chosen to focus on foreign policy, specifically on security and defense, and on military issues, really covering NATO for so long, it can feel a bit lonely as a woman. But less and less, there are more young women coming into this field because they see how interesting it is, and I think that, I mean, just in journalism in general, if we're talking about this as a career, there are more women than men in many fields, including television news. Not in the leadership roles, not in the boss roles, but as reporters. So I think that it's natural that they will also move into the security field. I mean, some of the best writers, at the New York Times, at the Washington Post, are women covering security and defense. So I'm in good company there.
So you've combined motherhood with a career which requires a lot of hours and a lot of travel. So tell us what that's been like.
Well, sometimes it means dragging my kids with me. Their vacations are places like Kosovo sometimes. No, not kidding. Yeah, they've had to go to a trial of a mass murderer in Norway for a vacation. Our last vacation last week was to Auschwitz so they could learn how to try to raise conscientious humans so that things like this never happen again. I think that you don't get off easy with a mom who's a journalist, but I think that you get a lot of also opinions from the public about doing this job as a mother. Some of them admiring and some of them insulting, but it is really difficult, but because this job is not office hours, so I generally put the kids to bed and keep working every night.
Well, how do your kids like joining you when you are, off to some sort of an assignment?
Well, now they're teenage boys, so as long as they have a phone, I can placate them wherever we are. I think that they didn't notice so much when they were younger. I mean, maybe other kids were going on skiing vacations and they were going and sitting in European Union offices, really. But I hope that this makes them grow up to be people who are more conscientious about the world, and then share that with other kids their age, because I just feel like interest in and curiosity is declining so much with young people's focus on their devices, and they're not watching Nova documentaries there. So that's unfortunate, and anything I can do to force my own kids not to be like that, I'm not ashamed to say I do.
Well, that's a great way to homeschool. So moving along, you've spent most of your professional life in Europe. How would your life and career had been different if you stayed in New Mexico or anywhere else in the United States?
It was very hard to stay in New Mexico and have any upward mobility, because by the time I graduated from university, I'd already interned at the television stations that would have been available as a career after graduation. So I was very lucky, and wrote letters all over Europe and got hired by the National Broadcasting Company of Finland just before the Berlin Wall fell. So I came to Europe at a time when the continent was changing in ways that had never been imagined before. I was in the Soviet Union just before it fell. And I often tell people, I don't like getting older, but I would have missed those things firsthand if I wasn't exactly the age I was, moving overseas at 22. I think that I have seen firsthand some of the most momentous changes in the world sitting here in Europe. Again, we're going through, some of them now. The war in Ukraine. We never thought there would be another war like this, another shooting war that looks like World War I, which was fought right here in Belgium. So I feel like I've had a front row seat that I wouldn't have had if I'd stayed in the United States. Other interesting things would have happened, but for me, my interests, I couldn't have been anywhere else.
So you talked about being in Finland. Quickly, we have about 50 seconds left before we go to break. What did you learn there? Because now you speak Finnish.
I do. I did learn Finnish. That took a long time. I learned both sides of the situation, the East and the West, because Finland's sitting right there in the middle and didn't take sides. And I would not have gotten such an education if I'd stayed in the States.
Good for you. You know, and that's the thing. A lot of people want to do change. A lot of people want to go out and try different things, but people don't have the courage. And you had the courage to leave the United States, leave an English-speaking country, and go to a new country, learn, learn a new language and learn a new way of life. We will be back with more of Teri Schultz in a moment.